it's an insult to the Los Angeles Lakers to put them in the same breath as the Philadelphia 76ers. You know, just the mere acquisitions of Timothy Mozgov and Luol Deng, as idiotic as it may have been for the Lakers to invest approximately $130 million in those two players alone, let's understand that these are individuals that have been in the league for quite a while. And by mere virtue of the fact that you had a veteran on the roster, what you were saying is we're trying to do something. It's just that Jim Buss didn't know what the hell he was doing, and Mitch Kupchak followed suit because he didn't want to lose his job, even though he ended up losing his job anyway because he followed the wrong horse. Here's the reality of the situation. The Philadelphia 76ers, when Doug Collins was there, after Doug Collins departed for the 34-48 season in 2012-2013, the Philadelphia 76ers systematically went about the business of losing games on purpose. They said to their audience, the paying customer, we're going to stink. We don't care because it's about championship or nothing. It's not about an 82-game season. It's not about providing, you know, some sports entertainment. It's not about being competitive or anything like that. We're going to stink for years, not one season, 4 years. They didn't add veterans to their squad. They didn't sit up there and provide the proper level of tutelage. They even hired a coach, Brett Brown, who I like and who a lot of coaches respect, but he had never had any head coaching experience before. There were novices everywhere. It was so alarming that the commissioner, Adam Silver, had to get directly involved and ultimately facilitate the 76ers bringing Jerry Colangelo on board, one of the elite basketball minds this game has ever seen, and ultimately he hired his son, who's not a GM, who, by the way, is doing decent, but some people would say needs to do a better job. But the point is, they're striving to move in the right direction as opposed to tanking seasons. In the Los Angeles Lakers case, they just didn't get it right. They just didn't get it right. But they weren't tanking seasons. They weren't looking at their fan base and saying, we're going to lose on purpose. They weren't looking at them and saying, we don't give a damn about the entertainment value or anything like that. Come, let's take your money, and we're going to give you a sorry product year after year after year. The two things are diametrically opposed to one another. The Philadelphia 76ers are on an elevated level because, as I said repeatedly, Max, there are plenty of organizations where you can find the latter part of one particular season where they've lost. It wasn't to their advantage to win games. They want to position themselves for the lottery, etc. You can't find anybody that lost for years on purpose and didn't give a damn like the Philadelphia 76ers. 76 was so bad, Max. I actually went on Philadelphia radio, Mike Missinelli, Angelo Cataldi, and all the people that I worked in Philadelphia, because I was right for the Philadelphia Inquirer for 17 years. I actually called the damn city out and told them that I was ashamed of them as contemporaries in this business for tolerating the level of ineptitude that they tolerated from the Philadelphia 76ers. That's how bad it got.
The 76ers stunk for years, not because they didn't care, but because they did. And the system incentivizes teams who stink to get better by stinking for longer. We all know there's a problem with the way the draft is set up. There's no perfect solution how to get around that incentivizing option of tanking. How do you do it? I don't know. And people have come up with various theories on how to fix it. But I haven't heard the perfect one. As of right now, the smart teams know stink for a couple of years. Now, let me tell you what the Lakers have done and what the Knicks have done. They haven't tanked, they've stanked. They stunk and tanked, but not on purpose. They've tanked by stinking, not on purpose. And that's one of the drawbacks of being in a large glamour market. Not that Philadelphia is a small market, but it's not New York or L.A.
It's a top five market, man.
I know, but it's not New York or L.A. Let's be honest. Okay, it's a different level of. It is. I'm not claiming it's a small market. The point is, when you are in New York or L.A., there's always pressure to be as good as possible as soon as possible. And if they're not smart enough to avoid that pressure or at least calibrate it correctly, what they'll do is constantly push all their chips in to try to be good. And only after they stink by accident, when they start to stank, when they tank because they stink by accident, if they're smart, do they realize, oh, okay, we have to stink a little while longer. And I think that's where the Lakers are right now. Oh, okay, we tried to be good. We didn't do it yet. We're not ready yet. So they have to engage something like the process in Philly. Stephen A., I'm not claiming they did the process perfectly in Philly. It was imperfect. But the idea was basically good. and I think that's where the Lakers are. I hope that's where they are right now. Let's forget about Deng and Mozgov. Let's be bad. Call it the magic formula. This is McDowell's, not McDonald's, McDowell's. He's got to do a version of the process.
Coming to America from the movie. I got it. Coming to America. I got it. And, James Evans Jr. from Good Times was Daddy McDowell in that movie. Absolutely. It was funny. But here's the deal, Max. I appreciate and get what you're saying, but I respectfully yet emphatically disagree because the 76ers had no business doing what they were doing. And here it is where we bring into equation where I have to make people uncomfortable. And that is this. As a black man, think about Joe Dumars taking the Pistons to 6 consecutive Eastern Conference Finals appearances, 2 consecutive NBA Finals, won an NBA championship, lost in Game 7 the second go-round, okay? This dude falls off the wagon a little bit in terms of their struggling seasons thereafter. Not only does he lose the job in Detroit, but everybody act like he never did a great job prior to that, and they hold Darko Milicic against him instead of drafting Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, even though he had Tayshaun Prince and a championship roster in there. They forget that at that particular moment in time, but that's neither here nor there. My point to you is this. The process matters because everybody doesn't get to be a part of the process. I have no problem with what Sam Hinkie did if you could show me a black man that could get away with that. I'm going to be the GM for the Philadelphia 76ers. And Stephen A. or Billy King or Joe Dumars or Isaiah or anybody that you want, Dell Demps, Masai in Toronto, anybody you want to pick, ask them if they could ever get a job and they could look at their viewing public and say, we're going to stink for 5 years on purpose.
Well, let's put it this way.
Work with us.
Let's put it this way.
Who could get away with that?
Let's put it this way.
That's the point that I'm trying to make here.
If that, in fact, is true, if what you're saying is true, I'm not dismissing it out of hand. If there's a sense among African-American GMs and would-be GMs that they're not entitled to the same methods as their white counterparts, then that's a really bad thing because it means that they feel pressure to do the wrong thing in terms of long-term basketball strategy. And if that's the case, maybe Magic Johnson feels because of his celebrity and his status as this beloved icon, hopefully he feels that he has more leeway, more runway to do that than someone else may feel because the Lakers have a good amount of talent. They should be tanking the rest of this season, and they shouldn't be in a rush to sign some free agent that will only make them good but not great.
You did radio here in L.A. You know there's no way in hell Magic Johnson could go. Even Magic Johnson, with Kobe in tow, can't look at Laker Nation and say, we're going to stink for 3 to 4 years on purpose.
That's a Lakers issue, I think, more than anything else.
There's no way. And by the way, last point, Molly, Max, remember something. These GMs, the draft is one thing. If you really want to make your noise as a GM, how about having marquee free agents be interested in your franchise? None of them were interested in Philadelphia at any point. It's a top 5 market in America. You ain't doing your damn job.
Very good point, Stephen A. And what happened to the integrity of the game? Coming up, former Raider Latavius Murray